Hi guys, welcome to Little Wicket Railway. I'm Rob, and in this video I'd like to share my new layout plans with you. So I'm not sure if you realise, but this layout behind me isn't set up at the moment. This is just a green screen. The layout is over there and still packaged up from when we moved house. I could have put it back together, but if you've seen my video explaining the design, then you'll know that I wasn't happy with a few things. Plus, I've got a bit more space to work with now, so I'm taking the opportunity to start again with something new. Every layout is a compromise and you'll never have everything you want. For this new design, I started with a list of all the things that I thought were really important to consider, and here are a few key ones. The era for the layout, like before, is going to be 1920s to 1940s with an emphasis on LMS and GWR steam. This is going to influence the style of the buildings, the signals, the loco facilities, etc. I'll still be running everything from all periods, but I'll be keeping the general theme of the layout to the Big Four steam era. A big requirement is some staging and train storage. I don't want to keep moving trains on and off the layout all the time. Moving models around is a faff and there's more chance that I'll damage them. So since I've got the space, I'd like to have a staging area where I can keep trains made up, hidden away, but ready to run at all times. And that brings us on to train lengths. My previous layout was about 10 foot long and the platforms could hold a loco with 3 coaches. But on the new layout, I want to accommodate much longer trains. I've got a few trains that come in at around 8 foot in length, so it's important that I'm able to fit these in the staging area and the station platforms. I'd like a continuous loop to be included. I've learned from my previous layout that shunting and controlling trains from end to end is okay, but mostly I like setting trains off and watching them go. So it'd be good to have a nice long continuous run for the mainline. I'd also like the mainline to have some changes in elevation to help bring it to life. So I'm going to build in some gradients, but it's really important not to make these too steep. I had a 4% climb on my previous layout and that was a bit too much. On this one, it'll be 2% maximum and I'll be aiming for lower than that where possible. So those are some ideas about the railway side of things, but what about the other stuff? I tried to cram in far too much track on my previous layout and didn't leave much room for pretty much anything else. And it turns out I really enjoy creating the infrastructure around the railway, like my small canal scene. So this time I'm going to leave plenty of space around the tracks for roads, rivers, countryside, buildings and all the things like that. And I want to have a mix of scenery that transitions from the city and industrial to the countryside and maybe even a small area of coastline. But whatever I put on the layout, it needs to be accessible. On the previous layout there were some really hard to reach areas, either because they were hidden or because the boards were too wide. On the new layout I want to be able to get to everything relatively easily. The final big consideration was how I might go about building this so that I can take it apart again if we ever moved house. This isn't an exhibition layout, it'll be semi-permanent, but I might as well try to build it in modules if I can. That's enough talking, let me show you what I've come up with in the planning software AnyRail. Here's the space I'm working in. There's actually more space down here, but I need to keep it free for other stuff, and this area on the left is more than enough to keep me busy for a very long time. There's a door here that opens inwards, so I need to factor that in, and this main area here on the left is about 4 meters or 13 foot square. I'm going to put the layout around the edges of the room to maximise the space, and I've started by putting in the staging on a lower level. Each one of these tracks is around 2 meters long, so should be able to hold my longest trains, and they can be split into multiple blocks to hold a few shorter trains if I want to. To get the trains from the lower storage level to the upper levels, I've got this central helix that brings trains up and takes them back down. I've got this so that the up gradient is 1.7% and the down gradient is 1.9%. I'm a bit nervous about the helix because I know they can cause some trouble, but Charlie from Chadwick has inspired me, so I'm going to be brave and give it a go, and I'm hoping that all my locomotives can handle a 1.7% gradient. Trains exit the helix here and join the visible mainline, which we'll talk about first. The models start by travelling clockwise. The track splits here just before entering Little Wicket Station, and this means that a stopping train doesn't block the line for through trains. The tracks then continue around the board in this 4-track section and form back into a double main line here. They continue round and descend into a tunnel, which is a lower hidden section. I don't really like hidden sections, but it doesn't have any points or anything complex, so I'm hoping I won't have too many issues. The tracks come around a couple of 90-degree corners and they appear briefly in this cutting. They then enter a return loop before heading back around. The track splits again to allow trains to pass through the station, then it joins up again before descending into the helix. So that's the main line. It gives a continuous long run so that I could happily leave a few trains running on there and just enjoy them going around every few minutes. But you may have seen that on the main line there are a few sets of points, and it's these junctions that give access to 3 other areas. The first junction encountered was this one for the Harborne branch line. I had the Harborne branch line on my previous layout, but I've got space to extend it now. The line will climb away here to a raised country terminus that can take a 4-coach train. It's got a runaround loop, a small engine shed, a couple of sidings for a coal trader, and this short bay platform for goods or maybe a rail car. This is a single line, and trains descend back onto the main line via this single slip. The next junction on the main line was here, and this breaks off and heads under the baseboards to a 3-platform city terminus. So we've got the 3 platforms, a small goods area up here which will go into a tunnel and it will give the illusion of being much bigger, a carriage siding here which when not occupied can act as a runaround loop for shorter trains. The station also has a pilot that can release locos on longer trains and marshal wagons and coaches. It's assumed that most locos are visiting from larger sheds somewhere down the line, but we do have some basic loco facilities down here for the pilot and a couple of engines that are going to be based at this station. We've got a turntable, a small inspection pit, water and a coal stage. This area is designed to be as efficient as possible in the space available so that locos can turn, get what they need and be ready to go as soon as possible. For the station design, I've relied heavily on CJ Freezer's Minirees layout. The great thing about this layout is that it maximises parallel running options, so trains can be entering and leaving platforms simultaneously, and the point arrangement at the throat allows a combination of platforms to be used. The terminus can also be used for extra storage for trains on the layout. The final junction on the main line is to this industrial area. I've not fully developed this idea yet, but basically it's going to be an expansion of the brewery that I had on my previous layout. Goods trains will bring in supplies and raw materials off the main line which will be shunted into these sidings. Then wagons full of beer will be taken from here to other parts of the layout. So that's the track work with the long continuous run, the branch line, the terminus and the industrial area. I think there'll be plenty of variety and action on the layout. Passenger trains come up from the Helix. They've got the option of stopping at Little Wicket. They can either then head up the branch, go to the terminus or just loop back on themselves. The through station has these crossovers so that trains can shuttle back and forth between Little Wicket and the terminus if they want to. Goods trains operate between the staging, the branch line goods area, the terminus goods area and the brewery. The plan is to use computer control just as I did on my old layout to ensure there's plenty of simultaneous movement. In terms of scenery, the idea is there's this transition from the city over here in the top right hand corner through the industrial suburbs in the middle over to the countryside in the bottom left hand corner. Apart from the city terminus, I've left quite a bit of space around for roads, rivers, buildings and general scenery to build up as I go along. And at the moment, the entire area above the Helix is free of track, partly because I think having track work above the Helix is going to be asking for trouble, especially if it involves point work, and partly because this whole area then can be used for something other than railway. I've always wanted to model some coastline, and I'm thinking about including the Metcalfe Castle here because I think it looks really impressive. This still leaves a good amount of room within the layout for people or my tripod if I'm doing some filming, and there's storage space under the framework on the left and at the bottom. In terms of accessibility, everything is within arm's reach apart from the top and bottom left hand corners, and I'll probably round those off with some back scene anyway. My only big concern is that to actually access the centre of the layout I'll need to crawl. I'm not brave enough to create a lift out or swing section here, and it's got 5 tracks running over it, so the risk of things not aligning every time is going to be quite high. I figure that I'm still in my 30s for a few more years and I can probably live with a bit of crawling for a while. So that's the layout design. I've spent months working on this, tweaking bits here and there, and it will no doubt change again as I'm going along. I'm aware that I'm still missing some trap points and all the signalling, but I just want to get started now and get building. I could be messing about with this design for years and it would just never get built. Please let me know your thoughts below in the comments, and constructive criticism is always welcome. I know this is a massive project that's going to take years and I'm suitably nervous. But the plan is to video the progress so you can follow along if you'd like to. If you do want updates, then please subscribe to the channel and remember to turn on notifications so that YouTube will let you know when new videos come out, and that's all totally free. If you wanted to help support the channel financially, then I've just launched YouTube memberships, so check out the join option button below the video, and I've also now got a Patreon option, and I'll put the link up on screen and also in the comments. No pressure to do either of those, but they do come with some perks and I would be very grateful. That's it for this video. Thanks for watching, and I will hopefully see you again soon.